Stay down on the floor and cover your head.
Fuck! Chandler!
We are talking 211, 211, however you say this. This is actually directed and written by York Alec Shackleton and stars Nicolas Cage. This is essentially a bank heist gone wrong movie. And here Nicolas Cage plays a cop who's kind of edging towards kind of retirement. And his partner is actually his son-in-law, is married to his kind of estranged daughter, who has just found out she's pregnant. And on this fateful day, there seems to be this bank heist in this very kind of run-of-the-mill American town by these kind of four heavily armed kind of military bank robbers, and ultimately takes place the siege of this bank. And obviously this Nicolas Cage's character has this kind of ride along, this young lad who has kind of got in trouble at school or something, and he kind of ends up getting kind of stranded. Nicolas Cage has to kind of like try and negotiate with the upper-ups and police and try and get into safety and etc, etc. So that's your kind of your basic plot here. Let's talk about 211, 211. It's a call sign that means armed robbery in process, but I'm not sure how you say it in American kind of police slang, basically. Anyway, I digress. So let's talk about this movie. Relatively small-scale film, but I've got to say this had some good elements in it, and it's surprisingly violent and has a high body count. You know, this is a sort of fairly nondescript action movie, but you'll be surprised how violent this film is, because these bank robbers are particularly vicious. I mean, we get a lot of backstory with them, which I'll come on to. But man, they are like ruthless and merciless, and they all just kill anyone, and they do. So the body count here is particularly high, so that makes them seem real kind of like bad guys, if you see what I mean. And they're obviously in it for kind of their own kind of selfish means. But I was surprised the level of ferocity and violence, and actually the graphic deaths. I mean, there's a couple of scenes here that I thought were particularly quite gruesome, and that we got one guy, you know, a police guy trying to kind of get a bomb out of the air, and it explodes, and literally you just see him literally fall into pieces. And various civilians kind of getting shot through the head, etc. So it's very, very violent, and you know, it's quite a fun movie. It's quite a lot of action scenes in it, quite a lot of shootouts and stuff like that, and these very well ill-equipped police trying to take on these heavily armed four kind of like special forces guys, and obviously a little bit out their depth. And Nicolas Cage and a good portion of this movie is kind of trapped behind this car with his partner and this kid, and sort of ultimately can't get out. And the police are so ill-equipped because these kind of like these bank robbers have kind of made this bomb go off somewhere else to try and divert all the resources. So it was it was quite an enthralling ride at the same time. And I've got to say, I know Nicolas Cage does these kind of like straight-to-video paycheck gigs, but I kind of liked him in this role. I thought he was quite good. I liked his kind of relationships with this this young lad, although it's reasonably undeveloped, but they've only just met, so I'll give them that. I thought it was quite good. Obviously, you know, he kind of starts to sort of bond with him and sort of feels responsible for him. That I quite liked, and you know, the action is very well photographed. It looks very, you know, quite kind of realistic. I mean, there are lots of shots being fired that don't seem to hit anyone, but nonetheless, I thought the action was pretty good here. And you know, there's lots of kind of collateral damage and stuff like that. So I thought for an action film, it's actually quite good. But do I have any negatives? Let's start with the end. This movie has this weird tacked-on epilogue that feels like it was shot and put together from different scenes of the movie. It's really bizarre and looks so out of place because it feels like it doesn't. The people aren't together, if that makes sense. Minor point there. The other thing that I guess with this film as well is that there's lots of unnecessary characters in this. We have this Interpol agent, unnecessary. We kind of get a few scenes with these other police, officers before the shootout, and then one of them gets shot and we never see him again. But they're not fully developed characters, so we either have them as just bystanders get shot or develop them to actual characters we care about. It's pointless having here's 2 scenes of these other kind of police people who end up getting shot. Just like, we haven't developed them at all. Why have these kind of scenes with them? So I think there's maybe a little bit of unnecessary backstory for these kind of these robbers as well, because the first portion of this movie all takes place in Afghanistan or somewhere, and it's kind of setting up the backstory. I don't think it was necessary. I mean, there's some sort of very good action sequences. I just didn't think it was necessary, to be honest with you. And there are some kind of cheesy moments. This movie does go in the somewhat kind of the melodramatic vein. The Nicolas Cage's character is days away from retirement. His partner has just found out his wife's pregnant, who happens to be Nicolas Cage's daughter. Stuff like that. So there's all this oh my god, I've just found out I've got a kid, and and then bad things are going to start to happen. It's that typical kind of cheesy kind of tropes that we see in kind of movies. And like I said, when we actually get to the shootout themselves, people just seem to be constantly unloading and no one seems to get hit in certain scenes. So it does kind of fall into some kind of cheesy kind of moments, some cliche moments. But I've got to say, I actually kind of like this movie. For all its kind of I think, fairly amateurish flaws, the action scenes are so kind of well shot, and the bank robbers are so kind of bad and merciless. You really do kind of think, Christ, these guys will literally do anything to kind of to get away with it. They don't seem particularly nice guys at all, shall we say. So although that was good, they're so well equipped versus the police who are so under equipped to sort of take them on. I thought it was actually quite an intense sort of action sequences, and I actually kind of like Cage in this movie as well. And I thought his kind of interplay with this young lad, as it gradually changed throughout the movie, was good. And he kind of feels a sense of ownership for him and start to sympathise with each other. And I thought that was good. So I've seen some reviews of this, and they've not been kind, but I've got to say, I actually kind of like it. It seems kind of TV, and it seems like the director, and I haven't checked, has done lots of TV, because it just seems that that's the kind of the very much the close-ups and stuff like that. But I've got to say, I kind of liked it, so I'd actually give this a slightly above average mark for me, because I think it's actually quite fun. So I'll give this movie a 6 out of 10, and I think if you're an action fan, you can do a lot worse here, because I think it's actually pretty good, and Nicolas Cage looks like he's, taking the role seriously, and we get the Nicolas Cage freak-out moment that we all want. So 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.